Hello viewers, how you all are doing today? I hope you all are fine. And it is Ritwik Mukherjee. I'm here to discuss about a very famous poem of Rabindranath Tagore, Where the Mind is Without Fear. I hope you will be with me till the end of the video. So without further delay, let's get started. So before reading the poem, we have to know something about the background of this poem. So initially, I want to tell you the initial name of the poem was Parthona. So now what does Parthona symbolize? It is a Bengali name, Bengali word, and it symbolizes request. So throughout the poem we can see that the poet is requesting to his god. So that is the reason initially he had kept the name Parthona, and it was first composed in Bengali version in 1900. Afterward it was published in 1901 in the volume of Naivedya, and in 1911 it was translated into English. Okay, Rabindranath Tagore himself translated it into English for the request of William Rothstein. So William Rothstein is the person who requested our poet to translate it into English. Okay, so that is the reason we are just reading this poem in English, right? So we have to thank the man. So now, before reading the poem, I want to remind you of the situation while the poet was writing this poem. India were under the British rules, and Indians were not free at all, right? Because Britishers was reigning on that time, and there was the authority of Britishers. That is the reason Indians were not able to live to their liking. So that was the perspective of Rabindranath Tagore, and as well as we can relate it with the reality and the present time as well. So I will definitely provide you how you can relate it with our present time. Okay, so at the first line we can see that where the mind is without fear. So the poet is urging and yearning to God, where the mind is without fear. Hey God, create a nation where the mind would be fearless. So he is urging to God that please God, create a nation where my countrymen can live without any kind of subjugation, without any kind of hindrance and obstacles. They can live fearlessly. Okay, and they can go beyond from the comprehension of fear and suppressions, because Britishers demarcate lots of and impose lots of rules. That is the reason Indians were too much afraid of breaking the rules. So that is the reason. And also here fear symbolize the social norms and issues also, because we are too much what can I say, just believer of blind faith, right? So that is the reason. And afterwards he says that the head is held high. Now what does this extract symbolize? So if someone is not afraid of anything, as he mentioned that I need a nation where man can live fearlessly, man can live without any kind of obstacles. So if someone is not afraid of anything, if someone do not scared by anyone, he don't need to stoop down, he don't need to bend down in front of anyone, right? So that is the reason the poet is talking about an ideal world where the countrymen can live without any kind of fear, and they can live with their self-respect. And after that, at the second line we can see that where the knowledge is free. So now just tell me one thing, what is happening right now? Just education often demands a price, but poet is telling us that I need a nation from God where a man, a person can acquire knowledge as much as he or she wants. So how you can relate it? Oh my God, how modern Rabindranath Tagore was on that time. Because now also it is not free. Yeah, definitely we are getting some kind of stipends, we are getting books or something like that, but it is not after all free, right? So he is telling us that I need a nation where the knowledge would be free. And afterwards he is also telling us where the world has not broken up into fragments by the narrow domestic walls. Just as we can see that at the present time as well, just we are living together, but among us there is lot of certain boundaries which is disgracing us from each other. And on that time there's a lot of reason such as greed, religious aspect, and blind faith, which demarcated a certain boundaries among the Indians. That is the reason they were separated from each other. So the poet is urging to God for a nation where their countrymen can live together without of any kind of bad concept, without any kind of blind faith, and they can live together. Okay, so now let's come to the section line where words come out from the depth of truth. Now imagine someone is in a place where there is no subjugation, there is no authority, there is no fear. He is fearless and he has lots of knowledge in his head. So, does he need to lie? No, definitely not. If someone is not afraid of anything, he need not to lie, right? So the poet is telling us that I need a nation where people can say the truth freely without any kind of suppression and oppression, of any kind of subjugation, right? So, and afterwards he is telling that where the tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection. It means here striving personified by the poet. Tireless striving, like he is advising and encouraging their countrymen to be tireless, because we have to be creative. There is also the theme of creativity is lurking inside this extract. Like poet is telling us that we have to be creative, right? Because we have acquired knowledge as much as we want, and now this is the time to implement all of the knowledge into our action. We have to turn our knowledge into actions. So that is the time. Okay, and we don't need to exhaust, we don't need to be exhausted, we don't need to be tired now this time. Instead, what do we have to do? We have to dare greatly. Okay, so now at the second line, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way. So if someone is a wise person, if someone has lots of wisdom, so does he believe any kind of superstitious positions, or does he believe in any blind faith? No, definitely not. So the poet is telling that if you are wise person, then your wisdom will work like a stream which will be too intense, too wide off to remove all of the perils from your way. So that is the reason he is telling that the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into dreary desert sand of dead habits. Now, what does dead habit symbolize? The superstitiousness, the blind faith, things we are used to do without questioning, right? So the poet is telling that you have acquired knowledge and now you have to implement, utilize your knowledge from getting the rid from all of these hindrances and obstacles that you are facing, you are encountering nowadays. Okay, so dead habits symbolize the superstitiousness which makes a man dead, right? And where the mind is led forward by thee. So he is also telling that he is urging to God that please God create a nation for me, create a nation for my countrymen. And he is also at the final at the line, he is also urging to God that hey God, please stay with us on the ideal nation to lead us, to make us competent and excellent on those field, and by you we can be creative as well. And just on that time, the where the mind for laid forward by thee, laid forward means just please play a role like a leader and just make us competent to ascend to a better place. So he is yearning to God like that. And afterwards led by thee into ever widening thought. So where ever into ever widening thought, what does it mean? Ever widening thought means the creativity. Just you have to be creative person, because you have knowledge and you are trying well. So now you have to, you don't need to stoop down, you have to dare greatly. And ever widening thought means that which thoughts will not die, and the try, and your endeavor should not be stopped. You have to try again and again and again. Okay. And action into heaven of freedom. And now just I want to allude to the very famous verse and sloka of Gita. Karma is the main power of a man. Okay. So just action into the heaven. you know your works matter in the field of your excellence. The God will judge you by your works, right? So that is the reason he is telling that action into the heaven of freedom. Like he is telling about an ideal world where we can live freely, where our head would be held high, and we can acquire knowledge, we would be creative. So I think the place, the nation would not be less than a heaven. So that is the reason it would be heaven for us. And my father, here he is telling that my father, in Bengali we say that Baba Mahadev, this kind of thing.
Let my country awake. So what does it means? Let my country awake means let my countrymen be awake and encouraged. Just the poet is asking to God to encourage their countrymen to be creative, to implement their knowledge, to go beyond out of the superstitiousness, to go beyond out of the comprehension of subjugation and superstitiousness and the oppression and suppressions, to be loyal. So the poet is asking us to be loyal with ourselves, also with the nation. That is the way. Thus, we can make an ideal India and we can perform better. We can ascend to a better place. So the poet, you can also see that the poet is not talking about this time. Poet is also making us obvious about an ideal nation which would be fulfilled in future, and it would not be fulfilled, it cannot be fulfilled in future also. I'm not sure about it.